Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah wa ba'd. So I will try inshallah to just present today's topic in a sense of just like a story, or you can say, for example, different areas of fiqh by connecting each other. So I will start from one hadith. Abu Musa Ash'ari reported about the saying of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, "Masalu ma ba'asani Allahu min al-huda wal-ilm kamathali ghaythin." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He appointed me as a prophet, final prophet, and He also honored me and blessed me with ilm and with a source of hidayah, or guidance. So the example of this ilm, just like a rainfall. The rain dropped and it touched three kinds of lands. One land is a very good land, fertile land. So what happened, this water helped this land to be alive again and to grow and to produce. And the second land is just like a stored water. It is not producing any kind of product, any kind of crops, but it is helping to reserve the water, because rain happened one time, two times, three times, or 1 month and so on. But what about the whole year? So this land is actually converting itself as a river, as a pond, as a source of water. So people are coming to take water from this land, and they are actually taking this water to drink, to let their, for example, to irrigate their land, their crops, and so on. The third land is barren. It has just like just like a rock or some kind, for example, very place where there is no dust or no clay on it. So what happened? The rain poured, but after some time, when the rain is stopped, what happened? The place is still without any product or without any storage. So at the end, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, so he said, for example, the first example, أصاب أرضا فكانت فيها طائفة طيبة قبلت الماء فأنبتت الكلى والعشب الكثير وكان منها أجادب أمسكت الماء فنفع الله بها الناس فشربوا منها وسقوا وزرعوا وأصاب طائفة منها أخرى إنما هي قيعان لا تمسك ماء ولا تنبت كلأ فذلك مثل من فقه فعلم وعلم ومثل من لم يرفع بذلك رأسا ولم يقبل هدى الله الذي به أرسلت. This hadith reported by Bukhari and Muslim. So he said that the example of fiqh is just like the first land. The first land. There's two lands, as I said. So the second land is those who are storing. So suppose our muhaddisun, they were the source to collect all ahadith. And they collected it, they recorded it, they documented it, they classified it, and they stored in their books. So this is the example of the land which is actually storing water. But the first land is which is producing, using the water and converting it in a product, in the crops. So this is the example of fiqh. So faqih, or the person of fiqh, is actually going to take sources from hadith, from Quran, from all kinds, for example, what happened in our early generation of Sahaba and Tabi'un and Taba'u Tabi'in. So in that way, they use it to expand the hukum, to extract hukum, to expand hukum, and to give it different levels of hukum. So this hadith is a very good example to understand that Rasulullah SAW saying to us that what ilm I am given, it may be taken by either way. Either you are in position to memorize it, to keep in your heart, and to, for example, just like a person, he is memorizing Quran. And this person is, for example, alhamdulillah, reciting Quran. So this is one example. But the other person is also not only memorizing, but understanding from it. One person memorizing hadith, and then the other person is taking hukum from it. So both are ilm, but the ilm fiqh is actually understanding, memorizing, understanding the source, and then using it as a hukum or as a, for example, source of guidance. This is the one first hadith, which is actually, I want to start my, for example, thing is about it. The journey of fiqh started from the time of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And the word of fiqh, actually in Arabic language, if you say, for example, fahimtu, yani I understood it, right? But if you say, for example, I got fiqh, so fuqaha, or you can say, for example, the linguistic people, they say, for example, fiqh is a little bit deeper than only fahm. And fahm in Arabic means to understand. Suppose if I say 2 and 2, 4, everyone can say, yes, I understand it. So it is fahm. But if I suppose, for example, make a situation, and then I say, for example, we have 4 or 5 options. Which option is better in this situation? And how, for example, I can advise. So suppose a person ponder, and then he say, okay, let me think about the issue. So he calculate different information, different situation, different options, and so on. And he say, okay, for you it is better. So fiqh is little deeper understanding. Al-fahm al-daqiq. And this is deeper understanding, which we call fiqh. In linguistically. Just like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, وَمِن كُلِّ شَيْءٍ لَا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ وَلَكِنْ لَا تَفْقَهُونَ تَسْبِيحَهُ. Yani every creation of Allah is doing tasbih. They are saying subhanallah. But how they say it, you cannot understand it. Allah subhanahu, so it is the linguistic meaning of fiqh in Quran, in this point. Another place Allah subhanahu said about the munafiqun, when they are sitting among Muslims, they feel they are Muslim, but sometimes they run away, sometimes they accuse, sometimes they, make play with it and so on. Why? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَلَكِنْ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ. They don't take the real understanding of deen. So in this way, they are actually playing or doing hila or tricks with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in this way, the word fiqh is actually understanding plus making more deeper, investigation, more research, and so on. From this point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the word fiqh, and Quran says, فلولا رجال said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فلولا نفر من كل فرقة منهم طائفة ليتفقهوا في الدين. You are an ummah, you are one ummah, but your ummah is not only focused on one action, one duty, one responsibility. No, this ummah is supposed to be divided or given different responsibilities. So one part of ummah is taking jihad, other part of ummah is taking, suppose, some kind of business, other person is doing so and so. But one of the ummah will be, suppose, for example, learning the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and taking the deep understanding of deen. And when they learn, they come back and they guide and they, for example, explain for their people what is halal, what is haram, and so on. And at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he made a dua for his cousin Abdullah ibn Abbas, so he said, Allahumma faqqihu fi ad-din wa 'allimhu at-ta'wil. Oh Allah, give him best dua he can do for his cousin Abdullah ibn Abbas. Oh Allah, give him the understanding of deen and give him the understanding of Quranic meanings. And one hadith also said, Rasulullah said, Man yuridillahu bihi khairan yufaqihu fi ad-din. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he want to give khair, honor someone with khair, so give him or her the understanding of deen. So the word of early, as I said, for example, linguistic meaning, understanding. But early usage of fiqh is actually, it was not classified as a separate ilm, as a branch of different sciences of deen. And we have gradually, in 300 years' time, suppose, for example, we have a memorization of Quran. We have a ilm al-qira'at. Later, it developed as ilm al-qira'at, ilm al-tajweed. But in the beginning, it was not designed this way. Even those in the Sahaba time, those who have a good understanding of deen, good understanding of Quran and Sunnah, they were given the title of Qurra, Qari. So they are a memorizer of Quran plus understander, or you can say the knowledgeable person about the Quran. So early days, the Quran, the fiqh was not used as a classical, and you can say, position of science of fiqh. It developed later. In the early days of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the fiqh comes from the time of Rasulullah. It is not started later. Sometimes, you know what happened? People some kind of misunderstanding. They think that the schools of fiqh, al-fuqaha al-arba'a, or this kind of thing, it happened after 200 years or 150 years and so on. So it is developed later. No, the early start of fiqh happened in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How it happened? In the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was sometime asked about meaning of Quran, right? Just like Adi ibn Hatim, one time he asked, he said, Oh Allah, O Rasulullah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله. The Christian people, they made their learned people and their priests and their whatever, for example, monks and so on, Rabb, Lord, instead of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he said, we never worshiped them. We never met them as a God. We never treated him or behaved them as a God. He said, no. Rasulullah explained to him. And he said, you know what? When they say something halal and you accepted it, when you say they said haram, you accepted it, it is the Rabbun min dunillah. Yani you are declaring them equal to God, because only authority of halal and haram is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam admired some Sahaba in their ability or skill of fiqh. Just like Muaz ibn Jabal and some Sahaba, they were admired that they are people of fiqh. And in the one time, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in Salat time, he said, "La yalini minkum ulul ahlam wal nuha." Those who are good in the understanding of deen and doing pondering in deen, they're supposed to be sit closer to my saf of salawat. In the time of when I have a gathering of salawat, they're supposed to be closer to me. So in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, fiqh was very, it was not too much needed, because most of the time people understand. Some needed question, so that time Rasulullah explained to them. So the source of fiqh that time was just like saying some kind of meaning of Quran or application or showing the application from Sunnah. This is really another point which is needed to explain. We have another word. Word, maybe you heard, every one of you heard about the word Sharia. So what is the Sharia and what is the fiqh? Sharia is actually, you can imagine, just like a Sharia is a title of whole deen of Islam. Quran says, ثم جعلناك على شريعة من الأمر فاتبعها. O Prophet, we now advising you we are giving you, honoring you with the Sharia, and you're supposed to follow it. So Sharia is actually a big title of all parts of all branches of Deen. Sharia include Aqidah, Sharia include Ahkam, Ibadat, worshipping, Muamalat, dealings, and suppose, for example, family issues, and suppose, for example, religious and everything. Sharia is included. So Sharia is just like a big big title of Sharia, of Deen. Fiqh is actually to understand the Sharia. So just like the example or the relation between Sharia and fiqh, just like a wood and carpenter. If I want to, suppose, for example, build a table, a chair, the source of this thing will be wood. From where I will take the wood? I will go to a tree and I will take wood from it. So wood is a source, but source itself is not converting itself to make a chair, but there's a person who will convert it. He will take the wood and then he will take it to, for example, design, and according to design, he will cut, and then, for example, he will, for example, do all kind of, the skills he has to convert it in a table or tool or whatever. So fiqh is actually what happened. We are Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a Sharia. Sharia means he is the lawgiver. And faqih is not lawgiver. Shari is only taking law from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and accommodating it, adjusting it, and guiding person according to Sharia. So Sharia is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and faqih is a human being. So we need to understand that the fiqh is understanding of Sharia. Or you can say other way, understanding the source of Sharia. So understanding Quran, understanding Sunnah, understanding, for example, whatever, for example, early, efforts happen, early kind of, contribution happen. So all we do it, and then we do fiqh. So in this way, fiqh is not originating law. And this is the big difference between fiqh and law, al-qanun. When we say, what is the difference? Difference is not, for example, suppose, because the law is man-made. How the governments of our time, from where they made a law, they collect some traditions, some customs, some old, for example, decisions, or some kind of human way, for example, to make their opinion and whatever they agree and whatever not agree. So all they collect it, and then they make just like a consensus or a majority agreement, and they make it is law. But they are free to make law with their own desire, with their own way. In Sharia, Sharia is given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in area of fiqh, faqih is not to originate or to create any law. Faqih is only to understand the hukum from the nas, the text, right? So in that sense, for example, we need to understand that the evolution of fiqh started in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was receiving ahkam al-sharia. He was receiving Quran, and from Quran we were getting, now, for example, do this thing, don't do this thing, it is halal, it is haram, it is, for example, this is most important, it is in a mandatory, it is voluntarily, it is, for example, so on. So he was receiving these things and he was explaining to them. So that time, even Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was doing sometime his own fiqh, his own understanding the ayah. And just like, suppose, for example, he was given some hukum, and he said, for example, the meaning of this hukum is, so sometimes the understanding, just like what happened in the time of Battle of Badr, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he captured some people from prisoners from the Badr Makkah people, so he was in position to kill them, because Umar advised him this way. Abu Bakr advised him other way. He said, why we not take some ransom and release them? And he accepted this idea. Later, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, this is not good. This is not good decision. But I am not, for example, for example, punishing you. I'm accepting you, but it is not good decision. So how, for example, it happened? He did his own fiqh. So in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was doing fiqh in this way, and he was also giving the teaching of fiqh. One time, a lady came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she said, my father is not in position to, he's supposed to perform Hajj, but now he becomes so weak, he cannot ride a camel or he cannot travel. So can I do on behalf of him Hajj? So instead of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying that, yes, you can do or you cannot do, suppose anyway, but what he did, he actually explained the issue in the way of fiqh. And he asked her, okay, suppose your father has a loan and you have paid, it will be paid or not? She said, yes. So he said, same thing here, right? Same thing here. So what it means that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam trained Sahaba to make the understanding of deen and making, for example, so we have some kind of standard of understanding the nas, and sometimes we are doing qiyas. Qiyas means analogy, and some kind, for example, extending the hukum from one situation to other situation. So in this way, the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was very, and a few things were happening under fiqh, but he actually confirmed that the fiqh is one of the great virtue and great gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and those who are doing it, they are better people. So this happened in this way. And we know that some Sahaba, they were known for this kind of ability more than others. So Ibn Hazm, one of the greatest scholars of our early days and for the 5th Hijrah calendar century, he was from Spain or Andalusia. He said that the Sahaba, among Sahaba, those who were considered that those who are doing fatwa, those are issuing Islamic ruling, most you can say, for example, if we, for example, number of these people are around 140. 140 among 100,000 Sahaba, those who are considered fuqaha. Then we know we shortlist from 140 those who issued one fatwa, the other ones 2-3 fatwa, and then we have many Sahaba, few Sahaba, those who issued lot of fatwa. So they shortlisted them. So in that sense, in the time of Sahaba, in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, some Sahaba, they got this kind of ability and they were known for it. In the time of Sahaba, you know that early days of Sahaba, especially in the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, or in the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, Umar radiallahu anhu especially, he was holding Sahaba and keeping them inside Medina. He was not allowing them to go outside Medina for 2 reasons. One of the reasons was that he don't want, for example, to make, for example, center of Islam supposed to be without ulama, and other places will be ulama, and some kind of, maybe some kind of issue will raise that way. Another thing, he actually want to make parliamentary discussion and shura discussion among any issue which happened to him. So many times he have any issue, he invite all these Sahaba, and then he discuss with them many issues. So many Sahaba, in his one of the Sahaba, you can say Abdullah ibn Abbas, he was a very younger person, very young man. But Sahaba, sometimes they said Umar invite him and he ignored some senior Sahaba. He said, yes, I know, but I know that, for example, this is better in his understanding of fiqh and so on. So Umar's time, the Sahaba were all living together in Medina. But then in the next era of Umar, he allowed some Sahaba to go and help and teach in other cities. So in the, you can say, later days of Sahaba, their migration started. So they settled, some Sahaba settled in, suppose, for example, Basra, some in Kufa, and some in Damascus, and some settled in later in Egypt, some settled in Yemen, some settled in, suppose, for example, close areas around the Peninsula of Arabia. So that time, the era of Sahaba, this is started. But what is the important thing to say to you, that the pattern of fiqh established in the time of Sahaba with two ways of understanding any nas, any text, two ways. And we call it in our fiqh term, Ahlul Asr and Ahlul Rai. And one pattern is to take the hukum literal sense, as it is, az-zahir, without going in deep, meaning of it. And other pattern was established in time of Sahaba, taking the hukum in a sense of logic. And best example of it, in the time of a battle of Trench, the Ghazwat al-Khandaq, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asked Sahaba to not, for example, to not go back home. But he said, now we are actually mobilizing our army to Banu Qurayza. One of the tribe, the leader of tribe breached the agreement with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he said, we have to go to invade Banu Qurayza. And they were outside, very such like a suburb of Medina, closer to Quba, Masjid Quba. And he said what? لا يصلين أحدكم العصر إلا, and for example, everyone supposed to start journey and nobody is supposed to pray Asr till the person reached to that place. What happened when they were mobilizing and when they were advancing to that place, they were not able to reach at Asr time. And Asr time entered when they were in the middle of their journey. So now Sahaba divided. One group of Sahaba, they said, okay, you know what? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to us, we have to pray Asr there. So we will pray Asr whatever time will be. Even it is Maghrib time, we will pray there. They did this way. They didn't pray in the middle of journey. Other Sahaba said, no. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam actually asked us to be in a hurry, to be a little bit fast. That is it. But if we are delayed or we have not able to go, so we can pray Asr. So what happened? One group of them pray Asr in the journey time, in their journey time, middle time, and other they didn't pray till they reached there. And what happened? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam never said either one, you are wrong. So it means what? The fiqh is actually, it is also in our schools. Yani coming generation of schools of Sahaba, you can imagine that these are two patterns also existing up to now. Even we have a 4 schools, but actually they are representing only 2 kind of pattern. So later, the Sahaba time when they established the station in different cities, so that time the fiqh was known from that city. Suppose some Sahaba they established, they were in Medina. In the time of Tabi'een, there were 7 very, very prominent fuqaha in Medina. They call al-fuqaha sab'a. So they were, for example, so when you say, for example, what is the opinion? Say, the faqih from Medina said this thing. And the climax of these fuqaha sab'a, Imam Malik. In Imam Malik, he actually, what happened? The journey of fiqh started from Sahaba, from Tabi'een, and then it ended with Imam Malik. So Imam Malik is actually on the receiving end of this fiqh. He's not initiated. The fiqh initiated in time of Sahaba. But what he did, he collected all the fiqh. And then he classified it in this way. Other Sahabi, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he is stationed in Kufa. So he also, when, for example, trained and taught. So the new generation developed there. And this generation from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, it ended with Imam Abu Hanifa. Some Sahaba, they stationed, suppose, for example, in Damascus, like Auza'i, and for example, Abu Darda and other some known Sahaba. So they were going to teach there. Some Sahaba stationed in Yemen, Sana'a. So they were teaching there. And Sahaba, after the Fatah of Misr, Amr ibn As time, they stationed in, for example, Egypt. And then later, the Baghdad become the center point of Khilafah and also center point of ilm. So Fuqaha, for example, they stationed there. So in that sense, the second generation of fiqh is connected. The fiqh was connected with cities. And that time, 7 or 6 cities were known for their reference of fiqh. Just like Imam Auza'i from Damascus, suppose later. And then later, for example, Imam Shafi'i from Baghdad. And later he moved to Egypt. And Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal from Baghdad, and so on. The third generation after the Tabi'een time, Tabu'ut Tabi'een, and then, for example, the third generation, you know, we have a one word, I think many of you know, heard the word Salaf. What we mean by Salaf? Salaf means 3 generations. خير القرن قرني ثم الذين يلونهم ثم الذين يلونهم. The best time is my time, and Sahaba time, and then the Tabi'een time, and then Tabu'ut Tabi'een time. So Salaf time was actually also the source of fiqh in collecting all the previous opinions, previous ijtihadat, and so on. And then, for example, making it. So next generation happened, documentation and expansion. Early resource of fiqh actually happened. First thing was Quran. Yani Quran is actually first source. Yani as Mu'adh ibn Jabal, when he was appointed as a Qadi for Yemen, so Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him, if you face any problem, how you will solve it, from where you will take the hukum. He said, from Quran. He said, okay, but suppose Quran is not clearly saying about this hukum, so then what you will do? He said, I will take from Sunnah. Good. Then he said, okay, suppose Sunnah is also, for example, not giving a very explicit hukum about it. So what you will do? He said, Ashtahid wala alu. I will do my extreme effort, then I will not do anything to miss. I will do all the way. So Rasul said, Alhamdulillah, he said, praise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he guided my appointed person as he was saying what is true thing. So in that sense, the fiqh of ijtihad started. And first source will be Quran, and the second source will be Sunnah, and the third source will be qiyas, analogy. And analogy means, for example, suppose Rasul said al-khamr. Khamr is haram by text, by explicit hukum, nas. Now the issue is come, suppose some other sources are intoxicating, making same thing, which is actually, so we see the illah, the reason. In khamr, what is the reason? We say intoxication. So it's okay. This drugs kind of thing also same or not? We say yes, same. Same illah is existing here. Said okay, the hukum of khamr will move from khamr to these drugs. So it is qiyas. Another thing is also happening at the time of Sahaba. It is ijma. Ijma means when, suppose, for example, we have different opinions. So everyone is free, for example, to go with his opinion when the person has evidence for it. Not only opinion. Opinion is not the fiqh, understanding. But now as a classical term, fiqh means understanding based on dalil. Because faqih himself is not enough. He must say why I said this thing. As Imam Abu Hanifa said one time, you should not believe or take my opinion till you know from where I took this hukum. From where, for example, the hukum is taken. So in that sense, for example, the broader level of tafaqquh fi din in the time of schools or in the time of this thing become a special branch of fiqh to extract hukum, understand hukum from Quran and Sunnah, and to expand it. So we have many sources. 4 are agreed among scholars. One is Kitab and Sunnah and Qiyas and Ijma. Then we have other 6 sources as well, just like Urf, tradition, and Istihsan, and Maslaha Mursala, and قول الصحابي and the Sharia من قبلنا and so on. So we have around 10 or 11 sources to extract hukum from it. But the real source is Quran. When Quran is taking something, so of course we cannot go to other things. So in that sense, fiqh is actually coming to that point. In the time of schools of thought, we have in the time every mujtahid. The ilm is actually the ilm al-fiqh has three kind of ilm. The highest level of ilm is ijtihad. Ijtihad means what? Ijtihad means, suppose for example, I designed a mechanism. I designed a mechanism and I know how it works. So I will be mujtahid of that, for example, this instrument or this tool. It is the highest level. So ijtihad means the person, he has a deep knowledge of Quran, deep knowledge of Sunnah, deep knowledge of Arabic language, and deep knowledge of earlier contribution of fuqaha in the time of Sahaba or earlier to him, in the time of Salaf. So if the person has four categories, masterly categories, then he can do ijtihad. The second level of ilm is tahqiq. Tahqiq means I am not able to produce a mechanism, but I am in position to change a little bit in it, to make some kind of correction, some kind of, for example. So it is tahqiq. Tahqiq means, for example, I am not a mujtahid person, but I suppose I have 2-3 opinions. So I can go with this opinion, with this evidence, other opinion. I say this opinion is stronger. So I say it is tahqiq. Just like, suppose, for example, if you go to some kind of doctor, right? If you have some problem, you go to doctor. Now, suppose, for example, if you go to doctor and you think this doctor is not giving me good medicine, so I go to other doctor. So it is okay. Suppose, for example, you go to one doctor, to doctor, third doctor, and fourth. This is not the issue. But the issue is that, suppose, for example, I took all 4 advices from 4 doctors, right? And what happened? I said, okay, I choose myself, which medicine is better. And I don't know medicine. So it means I will do the biggest problem, because what I'm doing, I'm doing without any knowledge. So what I do what I say, okay, you know what? I collect all 4 scholars, and then I ask them to make their unanimous opinion or whatever. So it's called ijma, right? And then also, for example, we have a difference. So I'm saying, for example, this situation established in time of 4 schools. So 4 schools mean, of course, sometimes you say fiqh started from fuqaha. No, it is not started. It is actually completed. And the early journey of fiqh, I read you from one source, which is interesting. It is talking about the fiqh Hanafi, but actually it is to understand. One person says, Al-FIQH, fiqh planted by Abdullah ibn Masud. Yani in Kufa, the real planter was Abdullah ibn Masud. وَسَقَاهُ Alqama ibn Qais al-Nakhai. And the next student of Abdullah ibn Masud, he irrigated it. He provided some water for it. And then Hasadahu Ibrahim al-Nakhai. And then the person who actually cropped it, he harvested it, he is Ibrahim al-Nakhai. And then the 4th person, Hamad ibn Abi Salaman, what he did, he actually combined it. He tracked all the crops together. And then Tahanahu Abu Hanifa. When the crops was collected, so the one who actually converted this grain in a flour is Abu Hanifa. So in that sense, the word, you can imagine that Abdullah ibn Masud is the source of Kufa fiqh. Imam, for example, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik is a Medina person. So his source of fiqh is coming from all Sahaba, those who settled there. Mostly taken from Abdullah ibn Umar, Sayyidah Aisha, and some Sahaba, those who were known there. Imam Shafi'i, for example, his source is Abdullah ibn Abbas mostly, and then other Sahaba. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, same thing. And by the way, we must understand that only 2 people are, for example, living side by side at the same time. Imam Malik and Imam Abu Hanifa. They are not a student and teacher relation, but they have a, just like, for example, a friend relation. But other coming days, Imam Shafi is a student Imam Malik, right? And Imam Ahmad Hanbal is student of Imam Shafi. So they have some kind of relation to each other. So these four schools, actually, it is not something declared by government that these four schools will be source only. There was not any kind of declaration by themselves, we are the imams and we will only allow to, no, it is not. It is actually happened by practice. We have many mujtahideen in that time. But later what happened, these four imams survived with two reasons. First reason, they did ijtihad in every issue and their fatwa documented. Second thing, they developed a whole team of their students. Their student actually took their ilm and then they spreaded it. Many other scholars, very few scholars we have in our books, but they have no team of students, or their fatwa is not, for example, documented. And third thing has happened also that these four schools actually accepted by government in their fatwa, in their qazat, qadi, they were following it, mufti, they were following it, and people also trusting them or depending them. But we need to understand one thing. Actually, it is very interesting to know that many times when we say sometime why we need imams, we can go directly to Quran and Sunnah. So this is not the issue. Nobody deny it. But there's two problems. First thing, how you can make sure that you are really reached that point, you can take a direct understanding of Quran and Sunnah. If you are, it is okay. But if it is not, so if I'm not a medical doctor, if I decide about medicine, it will be wrong. And this is the reason why I have a third level of ilm, which call it ittiba. Ittiba means I trust a person and I follow his opinion. But I'm not following his opinion because his opinion. I am following because I'm trusting that this person confirmed that he never say without any dalil, any evidence from Quran and Sunnah. So I'm not following him. I am following his ilm of Quran and Sunnah. And now, for example, if someone say, I don't need, okay, no problem, but you have to qualify to go that point, otherwise you will make a problem. The second issue is very important. These four imams, actually, they are not only alim, they are not just like you can say ocean of ilm, bahrul ulum. Of course they were, but the most important thing happened to them, they were most trustworthy and honest people. They sacrificed their dunya. They never, for example, they were not sold out things. No king, no khalifa can buy them, can influence them. All these people suffered. Imam Hanifa was prison. Imam Malik was punished. Imam Shafi was prison. Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal punished and prison, right? Why? Because they refused to take any advice from any other person except by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the messenger. So these are most trustworthy people by their character. And this is the reason why they were accepted and they were trusted. In our time, wallahi, and I can say you that sometimes you can go to some person, maybe 1,000 people can give you some opinion. But many times when you go a little bit deep in it, you will see, okay, this person is actually influenced by this kind of thing. This person is bribed. This person is, for example, threatened, and so on. So in this way, their way, for example, consider, I can say, sound and solid. I'm not saying it is the word of Allah. It's not word of Allah. Word of Allah is only Quran. Word of Rasul is only Sunnah. But they are actually explaining to it. So we must understand that they are not masoom, they are not innocent, and they can do something wrong, but they don't do anything deliberately. Intentionally, they don't do it. So this kind of four school established in our history, especially started from Abu Hanifa, who born in 80 of Hijrah, and Imam Malik 89 of Hijrah. And then it ended. So later, after the later generation, And I'm just, for example, dividing in two categories. One is actually golden era fiqh. In the time of his schools of fiqh, this fiqh was dictating rulers, and it was man's source of guidance. And no Khalifa can deny it. No Khalifa can say, "Oh, I don't care about it." And if sometime a Khalifa become little bit, wrong decision, Qadi of that Khalifa, he will refuse to accept him. So in that sense, our Sharia was actually applied, implemented, and for example, it was, for example, making, for example, dictating its position to everyone. Hakim and Mahkum, both they were following it. It was our golden era. And fiqh is actually was alive with three things. First thing, they were making the Quran and Sunnah higher. First thing. Second thing is they were understanding and applying the hukum according to their situation. It's like Imam Shafi'i. He was in Baghdad. When he moved to Egypt, he noticed that there's some kind of variation of situation. So he made new opinion. So they were living with era of their time. Third thing that happened, they were talking about the individual situations. Suppose a person, his position is a little bit lower, other person is higher. So we have a, azima and ruqsa, two levels, right? Highest level of application and little bit, permissible situation. So they were dealing with these kind of situations. This era continued, I can say 700 years. Later, when the Muslim, they will become weak in their political life, they become weak in military life, they become weak in their, for example, commitment to Islam, and they become trapped with dunya and, trapped with, luxury and kind of these things. So fiqh also become just like a, just like you can say, not, for example, going up, not going down, but just like maintaining it. So fiqh become little bit issue of mostly differing in minor issues. And instead of focusing on the higher issues, we become trapped in our, you can say, when they were going down. So fiqh become issue of what? Fighting, conflicting, and disputing. It is not the fiqh. We must understand. Fiqh is not thing. Fiqh is seeking haqq and differentiating haqq and batil and taking the higher level of deen with a better level, better way, and the lower level with, for example, permissible way, and so on. But later it becomes a little weak. Now, alhamdulillah, by the time we are living, we are, alhamdulillah, trying to revive fiqh, to make, for example, fiqh come back to its position. So what is needed now? In Islam, what I understand, the Islam is just like a building. So the building of Islam is combined with foundation, aqidah, with pillars, ibadat, arkanul Islam, and then we have a different kind of necessities. We have a ceiling, we have a minaret, we have a dome. Everything is there. So building is there, right? Now what happened? This building, you can say it has become a little bit weak. So what we need to demolish this building and build new Islam, new building of Islam? No, we not need. It is tajdeed. Man yujaddidu laha deenaha. Yani Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will appoint every century a person who will revive the deen. Not the innovate deen. Deen is not, deen is completed. Al-yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum. Right? So in that sense, we must understand that our role in our time is to scrutinize, to refine, to, for example, make some kind, for example, evaluation. How, for example, we say, okay, we have 4 or 5 opinions. Which opinion make useful in our time? So in that sense, we need tahqiq. And for example, to filtration and some kind of these things. Second issue, most of the fiqh issue are solved. Many issues there, but many issues are new, not happening. Just like, suppose, for example, blood donation. In the time of Sahaba, in the time of Tabi'in, in the time of other thing, there was no any blood bank. There was no any way, for example, not every person can donate blood and transfusion to others. It's not happening. So now it is happening. So can we say blood donation is okay or not okay? So these are some issues. But these issues, new issues, actually are covered by our maxim, AYAAT fiqhiyya, our fundamentals. They establish some usul some kind of fundamentals, and we can follow it. Just like suppose, for example, we say, yani, the human life is a gift of Allah. Can I sell it? Can I sell my body? No, I cannot sell, right? So in that sense, the fundamental established, but in our time, we will apply the fundamentals in new situation. This is ijtihad. So we will have two kinds of ijtihad. Ijtihad tarjih, yani which opinion is better in our time. So it is okay to do it. Other is to ijtihad tajdid or ijtihad al tahdis or new issues ijtihad. I can say it is there, but it is very few issues under this kind of thing. The other issue which is very important, especially when we are living in non-Muslim countries where the Muslim majority is not there. So our fuqaha in our time, they made a little bit more, titles, subtitles of fiqh, which we call fiqh al-aqalliyat, minority fiqh. When we are living as a minority in some country, what are our duty under Islam? Islam is a whole package, but how much we can follow it? Many things we cannot follow it here, right? Suppose hudud, we cannot implement hudud here. So many issues. So fiqh al-aqalliyat mean, for example, it's not new thing, but it is actually designed with a new title to say, for example, is Muslim. And also we have another fiqh which called fiqh al-awwaliyat, priorities. What are our priority? What comes first? Suppose, for example, I have in ahkam al-fiqh, wajib, mustahab, sunnah, nawafil, mubah, and so on. So which come first? I pray, suppose, for example, tarawih. I focus on tarawih, but I miss fajr salat. Is it okay? I will say, no. Suppose, for example, in this COVID time, suppose, for example, some salawat we are bound to go in masjid, but other we can pray at home. So which one is, for example, so fiqh al-awwaliyat is also one of the area where we developed. Also one of the area which is, for example, it's existing in our fiqh, but if we design it new way, fiqh al-tarjih or fiqh al-matlabi, what is, we say in crisis time, which is, for example, how, suppose, for example, I'm not able to offer Jummah, I'm working, I'm a doctor, a medical doctor, and I'm not able, for example, to leave my position in the Jummah time. If I miss 3 times, what will happen to me? Suppose, for example, and many issues. So how, for example, we do some kind of, for example, awarid, we call it awarid ahliya, awarid samawiyya, some pandemic happens. So like a pandemic, what are the hukum of pandemic? How, for example, we survive? So these are some issues which is existing in our time, and we need, for example, to follow it. The other issue which is also very important, especially, and it is a good thing happened that many Muslim countries, they establish academies, majami' fiqhiyya, majma' fiqhi li Makkah Mukarrama, majma' fiqhi li Azhar, majma' fiqhi li Kuwait, majma' fiqhi li Pakistan, walil Hind wa kaza. فأنا أتصور, I feel that this kind of a collective ijtihad is better and sound. It is solid and sound. Why? Because individual ijtihad, maybe something happened, maybe, for example, it is not with good support of dalil and so on, but collective ijtihad good. So alhamdulillah, many majami fiqhiyya academies are very active. مجامع فقهية في أوروبا, European Council, Fiqh Council of North America. So in this way, these actually helping us to, for example, bring one guidelines of fiqh in our time, which will make to survive with our needs, and also to make, for example, thing. So I'm, for example, I'm saying, for example, role of ijtihad in addressing the new issues. As I said, you fiqh ijtihad al-tarjih wa ijtihad al-tajdid or tahdis. And these are issues actually are helping us. So I'm saying, for example, what is our responsibility? We have 3 responsibilities about the fiqh. First responsibility, if Allah give us way to learn fiqh and to join the schools who are teaching good fiqh, so we do it. Because Rasulullah said, "Man yuridillahu bihi khairan yufaqihu fid din." If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want to see someone with khair, He give him or her a tawfiq, a ability to go. So our first priority is supposed to be the people of fiqh. And actually, I want to just say one point in that way, that we're not supposed to consider that fiqh is opposite to Quran. And some people say we need kitab and sunnah. No, kitab and sunnah by fiqh, by the fundamentals of fiqh. So in this way, the fiqh is actually service of Quran, service of hadith, service of all things extra to understand the hukum. So it is first thing. Second thing is, if you are not able to, at least we develop in our society those who are trustworthy in fiqh, and we trust them. In these days when we're the, this Google and this kind of websites and social media and everything, it is just like it's just like a new imam. We not need Immatul Arba. Al-Imam Arba gone. Now we have an Imam Google Imam. But the problem is that we don't know which source is this, weaker or right or wrong. So sometimes we confuse. And many times it happens that one person is saying this way, another person is saying, and then people also start to issuing their own fatwa, their own rulings. So we must understand that our source, the ilm of Sharia, is not only learning, it is also to understand the deen-based ethics and, for example, character. So in that sense, for example, the second issue is that how we prepare trustworthy people to run this thing. And the third thing is that how, for example, we develop a fiqh-based society. And sometimes what we did, sometimes we divided deen in different categories. الَّذِينَ فَرَّقُوا دِينَهُمْ وَكَانُوا شِيَعًا. Those who divided deen and they become also divided. Why? How it happens? Suppose I say, I care about halal and haram. Others say, you know what? I am a person of taqwa or tasawwuf or suruk. I don't care about these things. Masail is a problem. I talk about the fadail. So I'm making the Islam rivalry to each other. Each branch rivalry to other branch. No, it is not. Every branch is complementing to each other. So fiqh is actually to combine, not to divide. And this is we must understand. So ijtihad is to extract two way of ijtihad. One, to understand the Quran and Sunnah, and to extract hukum from it. So this is where, for example, if we do our whole, Yani Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he said, if you want to be good land, you have only two options. Either be land of water, you restore it, or the water, irrigation of water by producing the crops. Two land. If I am barren land, water is coming, I'm listening, I'm not caring, and then it's gone, so I'm losing. So these are the, for example, area of fiqh. We must understand that the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam admired those who are better in their understanding. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala admired, وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ لَا يَسْتَوِي مِنْكُمْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يعني, those who are, Quran says, الَّذِينَ ذُكِّرُوا بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِمْ لَمْ يَخِرُّوا عَلَيْهَا صُمًّا وَعُمْيَانًا. They ponder in it. And Quran says, الَّذِينَ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقَوْلَ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ أَحْسَنَهُ. Those who listen a call and then they follow in a better way. For example, and those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَإِذَا جَاءَهُمْ أَمْرٌ مِنَ الْأَمْرِ أَوِ الْخَوْفِ أَذَاعُوا بِهِ وَلَوْ رَدُّوهُ إِلَى الرَّسُولِ وَإِلَى أُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْهُمْ لَعَلِمَهُ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَنبِطُونَهُ مِنْهُمْ. When something happened to people, they become frightened. It is better for them to go the people of Amr, those who know the thing, and then they ask them and they will extract the hukum for them. And this is actually Abdullah ibn Abbas, he said, Atiullah wa atiur Rasulah wa ulil amri minkum. So he said, first thing, follow Quran by following Allah, follow Sunnah by following Rasul, and follow Ahlul Amr. Who are Ahlul Amr? He said two, Al-Ulama wal-Umara, the people of knowledge and the people of implementing this knowledge in hukum. So in that sense, for example, our society needs to make the issue of fiqh our priority. First priority, of course. The second priority is also good, but at least third priority, that we create a trustworthy people's criteria to depend and trust on them and to listen with them, and also not trust them, but trust on their dalil. And in this way, the fiqh actually will be our source by connecting ourselves with Quran and Sunnah, and also benefiting from it and making our society to thrive. Just like, in these days, a lot of masail comes in family issues, lot of things. And when you go and dig, you see the people are doing on ignorance. It's like a jahal and jahala. So in that sense, this is fiqh is actually very important way which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually give us a tawfiq to do it and to carry it and to keep our ummah. Otherwise, Rasulullah said, the time will come when what will happen? In Allah la yanza'u al-ilma intiza'an. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not take ilm from the hearts of people. But when the people died, so what happened? Other generation was not prepared. So what happened? The sufaha, those who are ignorant, they become leaders. And they were asked fatwa and they issued without knowledge. So they lost, and the one who followed them, he lost. So we're supposed to make our society safe and secure in the sense of ilm, in the sense of amal, and in the sense of our journey of success of akhirah. Jazakumullah khair, and thank you for your listening.
Jazakumullah khair. Barakallahu feekum, Sheikhna. So we do have a couple of questions. Do you have time, inshallah, to answer them?
Yeah, I have a few minutes, inshallah.
So yeah, the first question is how to start studying fiqh, like how to approach. It's a big.
Yes, I think what our brother Amr, he explained that here in these days, sometimes it is very difficult to travel to the centers of ilm. It has become a little bit difficult. So I think it is the responsibility of our Muslim community here in Canada to establish centers of ilm here. Now we have two issues. One thing, those who are running the center, of course, they can provide a place, they can bring the good scholars and so on. But the other issue is also that those who can, they can spare their time for learning. So now spare of time maybe two ways. Like the full time, suppose if you do this, it is the best. But if it's not, then of course there's a possibility to do it on your weekends or evening time and so on. So I think this is important. Now, for example, we can do just like this, AYAAT project offering some diploma courses, early beginner course. It is easier, for example, to do by everyone. But it is better not to stop after the diploma, but go a little bit higher level. So in that way, for example, whatever capacity of ilm is there, and ziyadatul ilm yani barakah, so whatever you can increase. But issue is that when you make your plans, so you have just like a support priority, fiqh tarjih, right? So first thing is to take my degree, second thing to take my job, third thing to buy a home, fourth thing to marry, and then fifth thing so and so. And maybe at the end when I'm retirement age, I start learning something. I am saying, for example, make your priority learning of deen also as important as other things. When you do it, so and you spare your time, so whatever time you can spare, Allah will make it easy for you. Because Rasul said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, hadith said, when the person seeking ilm, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make easy for that person. And all creation make dua for that person.
Jazakumullah khair. Another question here regarding the madhab, like how would we choose a madhab?
For the person of ijtihad, our ulama agreed that the person of ijtihad, he should not trust on any other person's opinion. He do ijtihad. But if not, then he person of tahqiq, he must choose with comparing and making, for example, comparative thing. But the person who has no basic knowledge, what he can do? So he has two options. One option is that whatever opinion he is given to him or her, he will accept it. It is okay. Ulama said the mazhab of a ammi is a mazhab of a mufti. The person who's giving you ifta, it is his mazhab, but it becomes your mazhab, and you are following it. It is the secure and safe. But if you want to extra, then you can do your own research. Your own, for example, making, for example, from where this hukum is taken, what is the dalil from Quran or from Sunnah and so on. If you do this thing, it is a good thing. You have to do. But if you are not and you are just trusting, so make your opinion based on a trustworthy person.
Inshallah. Okay, Jazakumullah khairan. I don't see other questions here. Is there any other questions, everyone? Or otherwise, inshallah, we'll conclude. Okay. Okay, Sheikh, inshallah. So we can conclude, inshallah. Everything was clear. People are happy. So, alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen.
Okay. جزاكم الله خير وجزاك شكر الله سعيكم and make your effort acceptable by Allah. Thank
May Allah
you.
subhanahu wa ta'ala bless your time and your effort and يعني accept your deeds, inshallah. Barakallahu fikum.
ورحمة الله.
جزاكم الله خير. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم